we have Ryan Moore doing the welcome here, but he's not able to be with us tonight, so I'm going to give a little brief welcome. So we are the Southern Pride DNN user group here. We are based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We meet in person every third Thursday here at Microsoft Charlotte. We also live stream the meeting, as many of you can see here. And so we've got a pretty good meeting tonight lined up. We've got some exciting topics, and we're going to do a little DNN Summit recap. So definitely appreciate everybody showing up here. Looks like we've got a good audience on hand. Can you mute that? All right, appreciate it. Yeah, sorry about the echoes. We're just streaming off a hotspot. I'm still working with you. Okay. All right, thanks. Microsoft has changed the way that they connect, and we're having some issues here with the live streams. Anyway, apologize for that. I'm trying to figure out where you do it. I'm hearing myself here. So yeah, like I said, we got a good meeting lined up tonight, and what we're going to do is roll into some sponsor recognition here with David Poindexter.
Yeah, for tonight, again, we thank everybody for being here, and this wouldn't really be possible without our sponsors. So I'd like to thank manage.com for hosting our website, and we would also like to thank JetBrains for their generous gift of licenses, and we've actually got a special treat tonight, and we've got a couple of licenses that will be given away because we did not have a January meeting because of the DNN Summit. So thank you to our sponsors, and I don't know if anybody's online from Manage or anything, but if you are, you're welcome to take a minute to introduce yourselves. We'll take that as a no.
Yeah, I'm David Sullivan from manage.com. So.
Hi, David.
Hey.
Hi, David. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to take a minute to introduce your company and kind of what you guys do?
Oh yeah. Well, manage.com. We're a web hosting company. We specialize in DNN. We were formerly known as Power DNN. And basically, that's about it.
I think we lost David there, so.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it sounded like you got cut off there. Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you for allowing me to join.
Excellent. So we're going to move into a little bit of community buzz and stuff now, and I noticed, didn't Joe Brinkman join us here? I don't know if he has an announcement for us, but I wanted to turn that over to him if he does have one. If he does not, then no worries. Joe did not have time to check and see if that was ready or not. I'll take that as a no. All right. Clay, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, so we could take a stab at community buzz and announcements. I think there's been a lot of buzz around one of the topics that we're talking about tonight, which is the DNN prompt, so I won't spoil anything with that. As far as announcements, does Joe have an announcement on the MVP program yet? Okay.
Last month, I think, probably because of the DNN Summit, so that might be a...
Gotcha. Yeah, so DNN Summit recap. Dustin, David, who wants to go first?
I don't know about y'all, but I had a great time.
I mean, I think everybody had a really good time at DNN Summit. You know, we did post a recap blog. video, a lot of skiing and stuff. As far as DNN Summit, generally speaking, it's been a free conference on the weekend. We kind of formed a group of people this year and said, let's do it during the week and actually charge for it and try to step up the level of the conference. And it seemed to be well received. We got a lot of feedback from the mobile app, right, that, that people filling out the survey inside of it, that people enjoyed it, and it sounds like people want to go back to Denver, especially everybody who went skiing, enjoyed it maybe with the...
It was a great venue. Awesome hotel. Marriott was really sweet.
Oh,
hello. Yeah, it was great location. They had us set up really well. We all got awesome breakfast in the morning, kind of comp. So,
has Ryan recovered yet from the altitude?
Yeah,
He was still a little bit this weekend.
Yeah, right. He got hit by some germ along the way. At the same time, it seemed like a few people were coming down with something at the convention, unfortunately. But
thanks, Grandpa.
We managed to get out without anybody dying, so I think that's a win.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of good feedback from DNN Summit. I mean, a lot of good sessions. I was jumping around. I didn't get to sit in a lot of sessions. I did sit in the business roundtable, and that seemed to be a good session because it was kind of new, and it seemed like you had developers, designers, business people, you had content people, customers who, they were bashing early on.
Oh, you are the customers.
You are the customers, yeah, because somebody was saying customers were, I don't know, dumb or whatever. And they were like,
hey, we're customers.
But anyway, it was overall it was pretty good. David's got the recap blog on the website or on the screen. You can kind of get a feel for it. That first picture is the Codathon, which the guys that engaged stepped up and kind of took control over, and we had a really good turnout for the Codathon. I think it was probably more people than we anticipated. I mean, like I said, I was running around, and when I came back to the Codathon, like they were spilling out into the hall. There were so many people. So I think we're going to try to, have a more structured plan about how to handle so many people next time.
It was really good because some people showed up, and they didn't really know exactly what was going on, but they wanted to be a part of it. So a lot of people weren't really prepared to really contribute any kind of code or anything like that, didn't really have the environment set up. So I think a lot of time was just kind of spent helping people get their environment set up and things like that. So I'm not sure it was a ton of real takeaway, but there was definitely some good dialogue and good community vibes.
Got some MV QuickSight stuff down there.
We did. Thanks to Peter Donker and Joe Brinkman and Ash Prasad, there's quite a bit of activity around MV QuickSight, and we should have a new release coming out relatively soon that brings some nice new features, and we've got some great plans for the future with that as well. So, yeah, it was a real good time for that.
And I think everybody enjoyed the keynote with Scott Hanselman. He, could be a stand-up comedian if he wanted to. It was really, really funny. And Waldo won the distance award. He's here on the meeting all the way from Australia, so that was pretty good. I think he stayed a couple extra days skiing too, if Twitter is accurate. Yeah, so you can see we had catered lunch and stuff. So, there's Waldo. Yeah, and there's Dustin. You get the same shirt on. No.
That's different.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I mean. Overall, I think everybody had a good time at DNN Summit. Yeah.
Let's not forget about the slopes. I mean,
yeah.
Come on for the social time, right? It was really, really fun.
Yeah, it was good.
If you haven't already, check out the recap video. Thanks to Clint Patterson, he was able to assemble a lot of the photography and the videos that people had, some GoPro video footage, some phone footage, and give us all a nice recap of what happened out there. We could play it for the people in the room here. I'm not sure how well that'll translate on GoToMeeting, but
or should we wait till the end of the meeting to play the video?
Let's go ahead. Well, it is kind of long.
It is kind of long, yeah.
And we will play it at the end, but there's a little surprise in there. So at the end. If you have not seen this, be sure to watch this video. Check it out on dnnsummit.org.
Aero Tunnel Designate has arrived. One thing I did not put in the recap was that while I was driving the snowmobile, I got lectured by guys, not our guys, but this guy. He starts flagging me down from another crew, and I go up to him, and I got it on GoPro. I was thinking about posting it. He comes up to me. He's got a snowball in his hand. Like I thought he was going to throw it at me, and he says, "Hey man, quit driving like a jackass." I said, "What?" And he's like, "I have fishtailing and stuff, man. Quit driving like that." He was cussing me. And I couldn't tell what was going on. And I was like, well, I was just trying to see how the thing handled, because if I'm going to go flying off the cliff, you know, I want to know how hard I got to pull it. And but he was serious. And so I said, all right. And I was on my best behavior from then on. So I didn't include that in the recap, but that did happen, and I did have it on video. But, yeah, so buzz in announcement, summit recap. David, you have giveaways. Are you giving out? Are we doing virtual tickets, or how are we doing this? I mean, for people.
Yeah, what we'll do is while the presentations are going on, we'll go ahead and assign some ticket numbers to those of you that are online, and we'll give them out here local, and we'll have a drawing at the end after Kelly's presentation for the giveaways. So be sure to hang out to the end. That's our incentive, to get you to hang on. So if you do drop out, be sure to join back in closer to the end time. Must be present to win.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it. David, you want to do the speaker intros here?
Yeah. So first up tonight, we have got Matt Rutledge. And, you know, we recently were introduced to Matt kind of through the hotcakes community. And I think Matt's been around for a while and has had some learnings in his experience with hotcakes, but in particular with DNN. So tonight he's going to give us some of his findings and things like that, some of his experience regarding performance with DNN, and I believe there will be some relation there to hotcakes as well. So Matt, thanks for joining us, and I'll go ahead and take a presenter over to you.
All right, sounds good.
All right, there you go. This should be over to you now.
All right, just going to click over here and start the video here. So my name is Matt Rutledge. I work for a company called Believe Kids, and we use the Evoke content platform, but you know, all this still applies, obviously. So today I'm just going to go over some of my experience, what we did with our shopping site, Shop Believe. So I'm going to go over who we are as a company, what sort of problems we had, discovering what was happening, and then some of the solutions we came up with during our time. So Believe Kids is a fundraising business. We do fundraising for schools and groups. So if you think door-to-door sales, kids come with your, you know, Jelly Belly catalog or chocolate bars, things like that. That's what we do. One of our big fundraisers are catalog sales, and each one comes with a sort of an online store, and that's all run off of DNN and hotcakes. So in 2015, we really went full into DNN, and then we made our shopping experience all mobile friendly and responsive. And we experienced a few issues in there. In 2015 that we heard from our sales reps, you know, you get calls and they'd be like, oh, our sponsors for our programs are saying the site's going sort of slow and things like that. And so we said, all right, well, we'll look into it. And we thought most of it was just our infrastructure, sort of what was going on. So 2016 came around, and I said to all the sales reps, you're not going to have any problems. You know, we moved everything up to Microsoft Azure, so if we have any you know, hardware issues, you know, we can scale up pretty easy, and we're not going to experience any of the slowness that we had in 2015. And in 2015, by the way, you know, we increased our sales 20% just by making our site responsive and mobile friendly. We ended up with about 63% or so of our users are all mobile. So August of 2016 hits, and we start to get a few calls, saying, oh, a couple little things were going slow. Didn't think much about it. Then towards the end of August, I started really monitoring traffic at night when we had our peak shoppers on. So I'd stay up till 12 or 1 o'clock at night when most of our people shop around the country, and I started seeing a lot of things. Azure was giving me a lot of insights. And so what I was seeing was average page load speeds of 6+ seconds, usually around that 8 mark. And if you do any reading or any research out there, people expect most pages to load in less than 4 seconds. And we were really struggling. We were trying to figure out what was going on. So I dug into some of the Google Analytics, and if you look at the top of the screen there, that was our page load, our average page load time on our shopping site. And so I went to webpagetest.org, started running through our thing, and you'll see a couple test results I have there. Basically, we're taking, during this time frame, 6 seconds to load the site. So, and a lot of it was coming down to our first byte time. We ended up finding out a lot of things were happening that contributed to that. So the first thing we started was just to go into all the CMS settings, right? We went the host, basic settings, we unchecked the show copyright, so we really have no need for that. One thing you guys want to make sure is you always have an SMTP server configured, even if you're not using it, because otherwise you'll get just like a list of errors in your log. And then we made sure we were on memory for module caching and heavy settings for the cache settings. And we made sure we were using the Ajax CDN and the Telerik CDN. And then for any sort of external things, instead of delivering Bootstrap or some of the other libraries we were using through DNN and hosting those ourselves, we moved those out to CDNs offsite, so like Cloudflare or the Google CDN. And then if you can, in your client resource manager, you'd want to enable the composite files and minify CSS and JS. We ran into an issue with this, though, where every time we'd enable that on our production site, our site just kept crashing. We haven't figured that one out yet, but we're still looking into it. So we had to figure out how to minify our CSS and JS separately, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But if you do use your client resource manager, you've got to use the DNN's way to register the script tags for that to work. Otherwise, it just doesn't know about your scripts. Then we went through the last bit of settings. We enabled the event log buffer. We were just writing events once every time they came in, and we had the auto sync file system, which we don't use. We're not uploading files outside of the DNN platform ever. And then we disabled the module online help. It was just extra data that we're sending down that we didn't need to. We're pretty good about removing any of our unused extensions. We still have a few out there, but we kept those around because we have future plans for them. And then I worked directly with the guys at .NET Nuke to help adjust our schedules. There were a few that were running every 1 or 2 minutes. Like, it just didn't need to be running every 2 minutes. And since we're on Evoke, we had one very Evoke specific thing. Currently we run on Evoke 8.2, and that uses all the analytics built into Evoke. So they try to log all the event data and the page views in the database, whereas I think 8.3 and above, they grab all that from your Google Analytics account. So we had to disable that. And it's not enough to really just go in and disable the actual scheduled event that's doing it, as otherwise you'll still get a whole bunch of data going back to your database. So there's two lines that we found in the a dnn.analytics.ejected.js file that you have to comment out. And they're right here, is the log event data and the log page view options. So then we figured, okay, we have the settings in DNN, good. So now anything that's going slow has got to be our fault, right? We always assume it's all our fault. So we started looking at some of our database calls. One of the database calls that we ended up seeing over and over and over again on every page load ended up to being in the hotcake system. And so we contacted them and they worked with us. But what we found out was it was the mini shopping cart that was really taking up a whole lot of processing power. And so we removed the mini shopping cart from our site, and we mimicked it really. We put in an icon up there on the top of our header, and we use after the page loads, we use an AJAX call just to ask how many items are in the cart, and that took that 3 or 4 second first time to byte that we saw on the first screen way down after we removed that. I think it's worth noting we're on hotcakes, I think 1.10 at the moment, and I know I've been talking to Will Stroll, and they've got a lot of that fixed in their new release, and I think they're on like 2.3. So then, since we were using Azure, we turned on some auto tuning in our database. So that allowed it to just the Azure system to look at the indexes for the tables we have that we're always hitting and automatically create them or remove them. If you don't have tools like that, Redgate makes some really cool tools that lets you monitor that. And then if you don't follow someone named Brent Ozar, he's got a site out there, and he just does a bunch of cool SQL tools and SQL performance monitoring. And he's got some great free tools that you can use to see what indexes you should be creating if you're not a DBA yourself or if you don't have one. And then we started using caching, wherever possible. All of our HTML elements, modules, we set to cache for a full day. Anything that we had that didn't change often, like we have a list of current running programs, that changes maybe once a day. So we use like a Redis cache for that, just to cache sort of the table out there so we don't have to hit the database again. And then we monitored this, and we didn't monitor it much with the Azure tools at that point. Instead, we monitor it with a tool called Glimpse. And actually, Glimpse has a package where it's called DNN Glimpse that you can install just as extension. And you turn it on and off. But at the bottom of the screen there, when you do a request, it shows you lots of cool information, and then you can drill down into each one of those. And then it'll show you some database info too. So once we got the database sort of fixed, we looked at optimizing our images. And if you read blogs and stuff out there, they're always like, optimize your images, compress your images. So we took all the images that we had that we put on for our products and hotcakes. We just downloaded that directory, and we ran it through a couple things. One, we ran it through a tool called Image Optim, and that's a lossless compression tool, and that takes out a bunch of extra header information and things like that. And then the one that we found out to work the best, though, if you have just a few images and not just a whole lot, was tinypng.com. We were saving, on average, 46% on our image sizes, which was great. Some of them a lot more. If you go to Shop Believe, there's this huge image that shows in the background, and that was eating up a lot of bandwidth. And I think we saved 72% on that image after we compressed it. So if you haven't gone through your site and optimized your images, you can. If all your images exist in your modules, I'd strongly recommend integrating grunt.js into your build solutions. We have a build step on our TeamCity server that goes through a grunt build, and they have a bunch of things. But one of the things they have is image optimization, and it all does lossless compression.
Hey, Matt, what was do you have a URL for the Brent Ozar?
I think it's like brentozar.com. I can look it up real quick here.
If you don't mind, just send that to us at post-meeting or whatever, and we'll get it in the recap. And then I'm assuming is that the SQL tools, or was that
Yeah, that's brentozar.com. He's got some SQL tools and things like that, where you can go and download under this free stuff link. SP Blitz Index, that's what you're going to be looking for. And it's a bunch of stored procedures that you run, but they spit out and tell you, here's the indexes you should create, and then it actually gives you the SQL to create those indexes. So.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So, image sizes. So then our last thing was to look at our JavaScript and CSS files. I mean, sites nowadays have a ton of JavaScript that they go into. And so you got to minify your JavaScript files, and you've got to minify your CSS files. And basically on the CSS, that means just taking out all the white space. And on the JavaScript, if you can run it through a tool where it changes all your variable names to single characters, it saves a lot of space. We use grunt.js for this in our build process, where you basically, and I can show you after I get through these slides, but you create a JSON file and say what all file names you want to compress, and you give it an output, and then it runs through, compresses and uglifies those files, and puts it all in one. And then in your skin or your module or wherever you're referencing your JavaScripts for your site, you just reference that one minified script in production. So that was a great tool too, because we took that one step further, and we found all the JavaScript files in DNN in the install directory, and we ran those through a minify script and uploaded those back to the server. I'm trying to remember, I think we saved like 800K of just data that we were transferring. And so that made a huge difference. So then after we did all that, we ran through some more web page test.org things and tests and more Pingdom tests, and we looked at some of the Google page speed and their recommendations. And we kept running across things where it was like, oh, eliminate render blocking JavaScript, or things like that. Well, we found out there's 3 ways to really handle this. You can use inline JavaScript for the little bit that or inline JavaScript or CSS for the little bit at the top where you're rendering things above the fold. But that becomes a little tedious, making sure, oh, this is above the fold, let's put it in this file. So we didn't go that route. Or you can declare all your scripts as asynchronous, or you can defer them. We didn't have any scripts that really affected too much of the layouts. Most of that was done in Bootstrap. But we did have an order dependency on our script. So we ended up using deferring the scripts. An async, you can go in on your script tag and add async. And basically what that tells the browser to do is, okay, as soon as you've made a connection and you start downloading the scripts, as soon as it's done, execute it. It won't even wait for all the HTML DOM parsing to complete. It'll just execute it as soon as it has the file. Or you can say defer, which that still downloads right away, but it holds off on executing the script until the HTML has been completely parsed. It also respects the order of the scripts you have in your file. So we did that, and we ended up here where our load time now is averaging 3 seconds. This one was 3.152. Our first byte time is under a second. The remaining first byte time we've discovered is just how we have our file shares in Azure set up, which we haven't fixed yet. But we're working with the support team at Microsoft to help with that. And people start seeing a page in basically a little over 2 seconds. And so this was just great. We stopped hearing the phone calls and complaints. We started hearing a lot of positive things about the site, like, oh, it's running so fast, it's easy to shop on, all the things you like to hear as a developer. So we have a few more things to do. We're going to really concentrate on moving a lot of our images off onto a CDN, just because we have people spread out for our shopping all over the country, from Alaska and Hawaii and New York, and most of our servers are hosted in a data center in California. So we're going to try to move a lot of the data sources off the CDN, and then in some of the new Evoke stuff, or they have the page output caching, which I think they introduced in 8.4 or 8.5. And so for a lot of our static pages, we're going to take advantage of that. But I mean, that was our experience. I'm willing to share any of our build scripts or environments if you're interested, on our how to do grunt JS to minify files. We just put that as a TeamCity build step. So I can show you that real quick, where all right, so this would be like a grunt JS file. So you just tell it where your packages are. So this tells Node.js what packages to load, basically. And then this is the step that sort of does the magic with the JavaScript files. We put a little banner up there to say, oh, we created this package on this date, just so if someone's looking at the server, they can tell. And then we take just a list of JavaScript files and compress them into the one minified file. And then we do the same with the CSS. Although we only have one style sheet there, we still minify it. So, and then our TeamCity step looks sort of like this. Get all of our stuff from NuGet, run our grunt on our targets, and then we build the modules and skins. If you guys are interested, on my GitHub account, I have a project on there called DNN JS Minify. And this just has a batch file, which basically takes all of the files from the whatever DNN install you have and copies them into this source directory. And then you can run a grunt packager on that. So I include the grunt file. And then it compresses all those and outputs them as the same file names and the same folder names. So this keeps all the structure. So you can just take this compressed source and copy it back over a DNN installation, and it has all the minified files in there. And they basically look like this. They end up to be one line. So, go back to my, and that's really it. I'm open to questions if we have any. Or, oh, and Joe said the page output caching has been added in DNN 9 as well. So.
Excellent. Thank you for that presentation. Do we have any questions here in the room or online? Excellent. Thank you so much, Matt. You guys have his contact information there, so feel free to reach out to him. Sounds like he's more than willing to share some findings and stuff offline as well. So thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Virtual.
Excellent. So next up, we've got Kelly Ford with us, and we're all honored that he's even in our presence. This guy, what can we really say about Kelly? But Kelly's been in the ecosystem, the DNN ecosystem, for a long time. Kelly, I'm not sure if you were here on day one, but I think you were pretty much when DNN was around, right? So most of you will probably know him from DNNDev.com and their work in creating XMod and originally XMod as well. So he's definitely been around, serious developer in the industry, and he has some really cool stuff to share with us tonight. Just can't wait to see what he's got going here. So, Kelly, I guess with that, we'll turn it over to you and let you get going.
Okay. Thanks for your session, Matt. I enjoyed that. Yeah, no pressure on me tonight. I guess it's kind of self-imposed pressure. But can y'all hear me okay? I can't see the screen now because I'm sharing, but if everything's going well, I'll just continue on. So I wanted to share a project I've been working on for a few months, and really it's been kind of mulling around in my brain for a year and a half or so. In the last several years, I've been working not only in DNN but outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, doing things like node development, scripting and building cloud environments and things like that. And that all took me outside of the normal DNN comfort zone of Microsoft and .NET. And I came in contact with a lot of technologies that were kind of frightening at first, but once I got used to it, it was really beneficial, very efficient use of various tools. And that just stuck with me. And every time I came back to DNN, I wanted some sort of efficiency like that. So it's been rumbling around in my brain. Then I kind of struck on an idea a few months ago and started putting it down. And I decided to put this together. So basically, we're going to use something old, and we're going to make DNN new again with this. So let's get started. First of all, a little bit about me. My name's Kelly Ford, and that's me right there. And like David said, I've been around the DNN ecosystem for a long time, since DNN 1.08, I think. So not exactly at the beginning, but pretty close. I have also been doing a lot of cloud consulting and cloud development, primarily in the AWS ecosystem. And I also design and develop websites and web apps, and I host DNN sites too. But my most important attribute, I think, is that I'm lazy, but in a good way. Primarily, I'm lazy in the programmer sort of way, where you don't want to repeat yourself. You don't want to do the same thing twice, and that's kind of the motivation behind XMod, and it's a motivation behind this tool as well, behind Prompt. I also have a company. It's called KnowBetter Creative. I'm the founder and head know-it-all, and I'm the founder and webmaster of DNNDev.com, and you may know me from my XMod Pro days. So I'm the creator and lead dev of XMod Pro, and the XMod series has been a bestseller in the DNN ecosystem since it was released in 2004. All right, enough of that. Let's move on. First of all, a little background. As you know, the web since 2003 has evolved, and DNN has evolved. So let's take a look at .NETnuke.com back in 2003. It's a mighty pretty site, really. Actually, before you get too embarrassed, if your site is in the web archive, the Wayback Machine, you should take a look at yours before you integrate the .NET site here. I have some that are really, really terrible. But here's .NET Nuke back in 2003, and you'll notice that they were really proud of the fact that they have 9,000 registrations. So that's where we started. Today, 2017, we have a nice, beautiful site. Fortune 500 companies use .NET Nuke Core, or DNN now, the DNN Platform. Back in 2003, web forms and all their post-black glory were the new hotness. And web forms are now, in 2017, being supplanted by single-page applications, or you might hear referred to as SPAs. They leverage the web API from .NET, and they communicate usually by JSON, and they don't cause page postbacks, which is a wonderful thing for your users. Now, to support all of this, editors have also evolved. Back in 2003, we were using Visual Studio 2003, and as you may remember, if you were using it back then, it was all about dragging and dropping and, yes, evolution. Dragging and dropping, double-clicking, and trying to design something visually on a form much the way you did when you were building Windows applications. Now, back then, that was a nice thing. It was really kind of a nice thing to do, but it ended up in the solutions you provided or building not being standards compliant, having problems with positioning, etc. It was just ended up being a not very pretty environment to work in. So now, 2017, we've learned a lot, and we tend not to do a lot of visual drag and drop. We do things with Visual Studio or WebStorm or Sublime Text or even Vim or Emacs maybe. But the thing is that we do mostly coding. We write text to create visual interfaces. And that's because we're working with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to create a lot of this front end. So today we have front-end tooling. It exists. It didn't exist back in 2003. There was no such thing. You were probably using Notepad or maybe Dreamweaver to create your CSS and your HTML and your JavaScript. But today we have things like Bower, Grunt, Sass, Babel, etc. We have front-end tooling because we really need it. We went from zero to this plethora of tools, and new tools are popping up seemingly every day. Oh, there's one there, WebStorm or Webpack. So that is a good environment for us. Even .NET is changing. You are probably familiar with NuGet by now. It's a lot like Node's NPM, Node Package Manager. Similar. We're using PowerShell more, and which is much better than the MS Windows command shell. .NET has become cross-platform with .NET Core, and Windows is even getting a bash shell from Ubuntu. So life is much different in 2017 than it was in 2003. If you would go back then and try to imagine what 2017 would be like, I don't think you'd be getting many of these predictions very right. So .NET's changing, but one thing is very clear in all of this change, and that's that the humble command line is cool again. And that's a wonderful thing. Do not fear the command line. But why is it so cool now? Well, it's because GUIs make us grumpy. And I love GUIs. I build a lot of them. I think they're pretty. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying ban the GUI or the graphical user interface. But they're not ideal for everything, just like any tool. So there are situations where you don't want to use a graphical interface or it becomes cumbersome. One of those is when you have a lot of options. For instance, the .NET Nuke site settings page. Just look at this page. We have, what, 5 tabs, and these tabs are filled with accordions that expand out to additional options. there's just a ton of stuff here, and it becomes it's visually overwhelming for a user who's not very familiar with .NET New. And it's hard just to kind of navigate and remember where things are. So when you have a lot of options, generally a graphical user interface is not the way to go. Additionally, GUIs can be fragile. You know, how many are familiar with the jQuery is not defined problem that often comes up? Now, I don't think you've ever had a problem like I'm demonstrating here, but we've all felt the pain of JavaScript essentially just destroying our user interface and not being able to edit modules or not being able to edit the page because suddenly the pop-up JavaScript menu doesn't work anymore because there's a JavaScript error somewhere else. So you run into that problem. Also, whenever you want to change things, it's complicated to modify your graphical user interface. It's not, you have to do HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But to change all that, but you also have to change the back-end code, and you have to make sure that everything's communicating properly and test it all out. So when you want to add something or change something in the graphical user interface, it's going to require some setup, it's going to require planning. It's just a lot of extra work that you really shouldn't have to do for, especially for targeted kinds of options or different settings. So they're complicated to modify. And on the web, they're also slow. This is my indication of what slow is. This is sloth at the computer. It's really a picture of me through most days at my computer monitor. But they're slow because, and what I mean is, it doesn't really matter if you have Ajax or not. The idea of slowness here is that you have to click around. If you don't have Ajax, you're getting page loads that you have to wait for to click on another button to get another page load. Even if you have Ajax, you're clicking and then a drop-down list loads dynamically from the web server. And there's a lot of things you have to go through. You have to go to different pages and do stuff. And if you're doing this over and over again, that time you waste adds up to a lot of time. And so there are more efficient ways to do that. Now, one of the ways you can do it is you can improve the graphical user interface. And that, thankfully, is what .NET New has done in DNN 9 with the persona bar. Now, if you look at this, this is much cleaner than the image I showed you before. It also is based on Ajax, so we're not talking about page loads. It's much faster and easier to use, and it's more approachable. It makes DNN look like a modern web environment, and I'm terribly thankful for that. It also reduces the options available to the user. They've done their best effort so far at trimming options down, but since there's no other way to set some of these options, they have to leave them in the user interface. So graphical user interface improvements, or GUI improvements, can only take you so far. They're still slow, like I said, a lot of clicking. Even if you have Ajax, the process of going through and, let's just say, finding a user and resetting that user's password, that's multiple clicks. And if you have a list of several people each day, if you have a very busy site, you might be doing this for a bunch of people where you're trying to send password resets, for instance, or they've screwed something up, or you're not sure about a user. Doing these kinds of searches and working with users, there's a lot of clicks involved, a lot of even Ajax postbacks. So it can be slow. And frankly, it can also be confusing. Now, most users do not need all of the options that you see even here that have been reduced. So when a new user comes to DNN specifically, they look at this and they become overwhelmed and are not sure what to do. If you're used to using DNN, it's fine, but still there's a lot of options. And frankly, if you have a lot of options that aren't used very often, why are they in the user interface? There's not a good reason to do that unless that's the only place you can make those changes. So with my project, I propose it is time for DNN to go old school. Something like this. Well, no, not that. More like this. Yeah, much better. We're talking not old as in archaic or antique or slow. We're talking old as in taking the best of the old and souping it up big time so you can do your job faster. Okay, so I would like to introduce you to Prompt. That's the project that I've been working on, and you might have heard about if you went to DNN Summit. This is a command line for .NET New. I've talked a bit about it already. You probably have come in contact with it through PowerShell, but let's just go for a definition of what a command line interface or command line is. According to the arbiter of all knowledge, Wikipedia, A command line interface is a CLI. It's used whenever a large vocabulary of commands or queries, coupled with a wide or arbitrary range of options, can be entered more rapidly as text than with a pure GUI. A lot of words, which basically means if you can type faster than you can click, then you probably should use a command line interface. I love command lines. I think they are totally and completely awesome because they are more efficient, and once you start memorizing some of these commands, you can really navigate a lot better. Try it if you're using terminal in the Mac or PowerShell or even the MS-DOS command. A lot of times it's a lot faster to do file management through that shell than it is through going through Windows Explorer or the File Explorer in the Mac. So I love command lines for the efficiency they bring to us, and because it's not a cluttered interface, it's a very clean text-based interface, things just move faster and they seem zippier. So they're great, but they also are intimidating, especially to new users. I talk to people all the time who they're familiar with the command shell. They won't touch PowerShell because that seems way too intimidating. But they might do a dir in Windows or CD to go to a certain place. If they venture out, they might copy a file using the command line. But that's about it. They try to spend their time outside of the shell as much as possible. But that's primarily because it's intimidating. It's all text. It's like going back to Unix days where for some people it's like trying to program an assembly. So that's a problem if we want to do something with the command line within .NET Nuke. So with Prompt, I've decided to try to navigate bring that awesome of the command line, but also bring the friendly too. And I think we can do that. One of I basically have three guiding principles behind the design of Prompt. The first one is that obviously it should feel and operate like a command line interface. Those who love the command line shouldn't feel like they're hampered by trying to use a command line in .NET Nuke. So it should have a general look of a command line, and you'll see that it does here in a second. But it should have the same efficiency and speed, but I don't want to fall prey to the trap that a command line would have. A command line is all text-based, but in reality in the DNN command line, in Prompt, we're dealing in an HTML environment. So there are things that we can bring to the table in limited ways that can enhance the experience of a command line that you can't do with a normal shell. Things like adding hyperlinks here and there. Maybe even allow the ability to display images. So those kinds of things would leverage in a restricted manner, I think could really improve the user experience of the command line, make it more efficient, make it friendlier for a lot of people who aren't familiar with the command line, and at the same time make it just easier to use. Now, the second one is really to reduce this the intimidation factor. And I've done this in a number of ways. We have extensive help. Now, .NET Nuke and the whole ecosystem is not known for having wonderful help systems. I would like to change that with Prompt because we're going in with this intimidation. I want to make it friendlier. So it comes with extensive help, and this help is not just like this is what this command does. It comes with examples, and it has good descriptions of what all of the options are and what the potential side effects are when appropriate. It also will give suggestions to users. So if you type in the name of the command wrong, it will try to suggest, oh, did you mean this command instead? It will also have meaningful error messages. So if you do make a mistake, it's going to try to tell you more specifically what that mistake was so that you can correct it. I also have worked hard in coming up with the command names. For instance, there is between the word add and new. Now DNN, if you program in DNN, you'll see the word add a lot, like add a role or add a user or something like that. But from a command line perspective, add can be very, if you want to maintain consistency, add can be confused with new. You're not sure when to use new, when to use add. So we're going to use new whenever you create something, and we're going to use add whenever you want to add something to a list. So add is more of concatenation, whereas new, it really is new. It means create something new. Also, like most shells, we're also dealing with, we're not going to be case sensitive in the command line. The third and final guiding principle is to minimize keystrokes, much as I just did here. So we'll actually erase that and minimize keystrokes. And you'll see this in just some of the decisions that are made in terms of what to name a particular command. So for instance, when we're creating a new user, I don't say create user, I use the word new instead because it's half the letters. And when you start using a command line, you want to be able to use shortcuts as much as possible and avoid keystrokes whenever possible. I don't want that to be at the expense of readability or usability, but whenever we can make those choices, I want to reduce keystrokes. Another example of that would be if you're passing a string value into a particular command. If it's a single word, then you don't have to surround it in double quotes. But if you're using multiple words or characters that might interfere with the parsing of the command, then you would put it in quotes in order to make that work. So that's a fairly lengthy introduction, so why don't we get to a demo. Now, I want to warn you before we do this that this is, I would consider it alpha software. I probably will run into bugs even in this demo, so bear with me. Here we go. I need to switch my screen here, so hang on. All right, where's my little screen picker? Oh, there it is. Screen. Can you guys see that? Anybody? Yes, no?
Yep. Yes, we are seeing it.
Okay, good. So here we are in a DNN 901 site. I probably have no longer logged in, so let me just check on that. Nope. All right, so I'm going to log in as a host. Eventually.
That would be so much faster in a command line, Kevin.
I'll take that into consideration too. I was thinking the same thing every time I had to log in. All right, so over to the left, you'll see the DNN persona bar, the new thing for DNN 9, which is awesome. From my previous screen, you might notice there's a new button. What we've done is we've added the prompt button here. Now, we've chosen to make it a root level button because in my mind, this is really an integral, and I don't want to blow it up too much, but I really do think this is a critical and kind of a required component for .NET New going forward. And if that is the case, then I think you need the root. So just click on the prompt icon here, and here you are with your very own command line. And as you can see, it looks a lot like a command line. Now, let me just start out with some of the help system, because that is part of really what we're doing to try to reduce this intimidation. Normally with a command shell, you're just going to see a blinking cursor and you have no idea what to do. This is going to tell you to type in help to get a list of commands, so we'll do that. And you'll see a very nicely formatted list of commands. Again, we're taking advantage of HTML, but not too much, just enough to give it clarity and make it easy to read, which you won't normally get with man pages, for instance, in a bash shell. So we've broken it up into general commands, commands that relate to the page. You can see user-related commands, module commands, host commands, commands that affect the portal, commands that affect the DNN security roles, and then scheduler commands. So kind of the basic components that you would experience in a DNN site when you're administering it. Now, there are quite a few commands already that are built, but I want to point you to these two links down here at the bottom. And yes, they are links. What is really nice, I think, about prompts is that when you click on one of these links, and they show up in data results as well. But here in the help file, if you click on one of these, you'll see that down here it has actually auto-generated a command for you called help space syntax. And that is going to take you to a new page, help page, which gives you all the basics for prompt. And if you're new to prompt, I encourage you to read through these. They're not very long, but it really goes through some of the philosophy behind how prompt is created, how the language, how the command language works. And understanding that will take you a long way towards being able to use prompt fast and efficiently. So I read through that, but to summarize for you, essentially most commands in prompt are going to be 2 words. They'll be separated by a single dash. The first word is going to be an action, as you can see here, like get. And the second word will be a component, like one of those major components, like user. After that, if there are options that you want, we call them flags also in the help file, they'll be preceded by 2 dashes and then the name of the option, so -- email in this case. After that, just a space, and if you're supplying a value to that option, you just type it in, like we did here with the email address. Now, if there's more than one word or you have some funky characters that you're submitting as part of the value, then you're going to want to enclose that in double quotes. Pretty simple. Now let's follow on to the learning prompt commands, because this will help you kind of look at, again, how this is structured, and it'll make it clearer, I think, when you're trying to learn these commands. Again, I just clicked on the link there and it generated this command for me, help learn, and that brings up this page. And this is going to run through not only some of what I talked about with the hyphens and the words, but it gives you a list of most of the common commands, not all of them, but most of them, and deep descriptions of what they are and why they are named that way. So you'll get a description between new and add that kind of describes why we've chosen one over the other. And then there's a list of the common components, which we've kind of gone through already: user, page, role, task. Task is actually schedule items, and we chose the word task because scheduler item is really too long. I don't want to type that much. So task is short, sweet, and to the point. Then we've got portal and module. And then finally we can go back to the prompt commands list, which is just the help command. And that gets us here. So far so good, I think. Now we have brief descriptions of these commands in the command list, but you can get detailed descriptions of these. So let's just skip through to, let's say, list pages and click on that. You'll see it's generated the command for us. So whenever you want detailed help on a particular command, just type in help and then the name of the command and hit enter. So this is the list pages help topic. So it starts here at the bright blue line, list pages. And again, I have opted to have as much information as possible, so I know that some people might get confused with the internal naming of DNN being tabs, but externally in the user interface, DNN now uses the word page, so we kind of explain that for you. It runs through all these commands. Are going to have a list of the options that are available, if there are any. It's going to give you what type of value it is, whether it's Boolean or string or an integer, what it's expecting, whether or not it's required, what default value there may be, if anything, and most importantly, I think, a description, a really detailed description of what these options are and how they operate. And I'm not going to read these for you, but I encourage you to look through them. A lot of the reasoning behind a particular option or how it's used is revealed in this help documentation. This particular command, list pages, has a lot of options, not all of which are required, as you see. In fact, if I go down and, oh, I should finish explaining this to you. So here's the most basic command, list all pages in the current portal. So we just type in list pages. And then it shows you an example of the result that you'll get back, sample result. And then it gives you some other possible commands that you could use with some of the other options. So list child pages that are the children of a particular page. There are 2 ways you can do that. You can either use the option or you can just type in the value here. And then again, results. There are multiple, depending on the particular command that you're using, there are multiple examples of how to do this. You can see in some of these, we're also using an asterisk, which means that we use an asterisk as a wildcard, much as you've seen before, that can take the place of a placeholder for 0 or more characters. So this is great because when you're doing a search, let's say, on the path of a page, you want to get all the pages within the admin menu that have the word management in them. You can do that with the asterisk. So let's kind of dive in. That takes care of most of the help file. So let's just dive in, and if I type in list page, you'll notice that I get an error message. I couldn't find that command, but it is suggesting that I actually mean list pages, which is really what I meant. So I'm going to type that in. And this is the result that we get. Now you'll notice that we have some links here, and if we scroll over to the right, we'll see some additional information, the path for each of these pages, whether or not it is visible in a menu, and whether or not it's been deleted, i.e. it's in the .NET recycle bin. So you get all this. Again, to help you learn some of these commands, if you see a link, just hover over it, and the tooltip will tell you what the command is. So if we want to look at that specific page for the activity feed, we would just type in get-page 21, or we can just click the link, and you can see down at the bottom it generates that command for us, and all we have to do is hit enter. Now the reason we don't automatically take you to the details is because some of these links might do things that change your data. So we want you to review the command first before actually hitting enter, just in case it's not the command that you wanted. So we'll just get the page here, get the details. This is the other main type of view that you'll see in prompt, and this is the detail page. It usually has more information with it than you'll see in the table view. So you can see that it's all the labels are on the left, and they give you a lot of the similar information that we had before, and most of the important menu information that you might want about a page. So we can also do things like list pages that are in the path, admin, and I'm just going to show you all of the pages in the admin. Oh, there, it happened again. So list pages. And now we see only the pages that are under the admin parent menu. So you can use this on the title and the name. You can use parent ID to also see child pages. You can show pages that have been deleted, i.e. those are in the recycle bin. If you're having trouble finding a particular page that people say is there, that they've gotten to by a direct link, for instance, you could do a search for pages that aren't visible and just get a list of those. So it makes your ability to get information just from a get standpoint much easier, much faster. And going forward, it will enable you to do even more complex searches as you need in order to do your job quicker. Okay, so that's list pages. Let me just do that again. Get all the pages in the site, and we'll just take a look at the home page here. We can see pages, but the nice thing is you can also add pages, and you can delete pages, and you can get rid of pages out of the recycle bin. So let's try some of that. First of all, and let me expand my page here so you can see a little bit more. All right, so right now we just have, if you look in the grayed out area, you can see we have a home and we have an XMP page in the site. So let's add a new page. I'll call it page 1. And again, not add, but new page. In an effort to reduce keystrokes, the bare minimum that you need to create a page is simply the name of the page. So I'm just going to call it page 1. And since it's just one word, I don't have to put it in quotes. Now it has created the page, and it's returned all the information that is retrieved about that page after it's been added. So we know what the tab ID or the page ID, and that's 42. If you look over in the grayed out area, you don't see the page in the menus yet because we haven't refreshed that page. It hasn't been regenerated by DNN. So let's do that now. We can reload from the command line, and we're back to where we are. If you look over to the right, you'll see page 1 has been added as a root level menu. Now, because it's a page load and we are dealing with HTML, we've lost all the stuff that we had in the window before. Yeah.
Do you mind just closing the prompt for just a second, because that's not translating real well here on our screen. Sorry about that.
As in seeing the menu item.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right, so yeah, I guess that might be a little dark. So yeah, there's page 1. And feel free to interrupt me whenever you need, because I can't see any chats in this view. Okay, so back to prompt. We've lost all the displays of help and all the list of stuff that we had before, But one nice thing that you expect from a command line is that we can arrow up and we can see all of the commands that we've issued. We can arrow down to go through them, regardless of whether or not we did a page load. So I think that's a wonderful thing that gives us the feel of a command line. So we have page 1. Now let's do something a little bit different. Let's add a couple more pages, but we'll make them child pages of page 1. So I'll just type in new page. Actually, I'll use my up arrow. New page. Oh, no, actually, I want to do one more thing because I need that ID again. And my short-term memory is horrible. So I'm going to list pages again. And the new page is called page 1, has an ID of 42. So we'll do new page called page 1A. And we want it to be a child of our page 1. So parent ID is 42. So hit that. It creates a new page. Again, you don't see anything there. Let's go ahead and, it won't be visible in that grayed out section, but you can see that we've created a new page because it's been returned live from the database, or from the DNN API. So next, let's add another page, also as a child page, called page 1B, and that also has a parent ID of 42. And we can see that's been created. And you'll see that the parent ID is listed here, 42. Now let's reload and see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't break. All right, close out there. You can see page 1 has been created, and it's got subpages of page 1A and page 1B. All great from my perspective. But you know, I don't like page 1B. It was just kind of a test page, so I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to delete the page. And I don't remember what the ID was. It was 42, I think. Let's see. List pages again. Page 1B was 44. Okay. So, delete page 44. Again, helpful. Delete dash page 44. There we go. So it tells us it's successfully deleted it. Let's actually reload and see if that's the case. All right, so we just have 1A now. Now if we go to the recycle bin, we should see page 1B in the pages. There it is. Now we could just use the screen here to empty it from the recycle bin, but you can also do it, you know, while you're in the flow of the command line. You know, you don't want to pick up your mouse and start clicking around. So while you're in the command line, you can simply just purge the page. Now in DNN, again, they use the word remove a lot, but I've opted for the word purge because I think it's a little clearer as to what you're doing. And again, it's shorter, less letters than remove. So purge page, and that was 44. Let's purge the page, page 1B. And if we go to the recycle bin, you can see that there's nothing left in the recycle bin. So I think that's pretty cool. It also means that if I want to take, let me list the pages again. If I want to take page 1A and move it to be the child of this X and P page, which is ID of 33, then how would I do that? Well, I can, and I'm kind of stretching it here. This may break. It worked on a previous version, but may break here. Let me do a help and get a list of my page commands here. Okay, so if we use this set page command and update a property of the current page, I wonder if that will work. Let's do set page. Oh, dang it. I wish I had someone here who had a better memory than me. So page 1A is 43, and the XMod Pro page is 33. So we set page Page ID. Actually, I'm going to show you the help for it first. Okay, so these are the things, these are the options we have that we can set on the page. So we'll need to specify the ID, which is the current page ID, and then we can change other things, including the parent ID. So good, that's what I want. So we will do set page ID 43, and we want to change the parent ID of that to 33. Right. Page has been updated. We can see that the parent ID is 33. Now if we do a reload and get rid of the prompt, you'll see that the XMod Pro now has page 1A underneath it. So I think you can probably see how efficient this can make you when you're managing things, especially when you're in the development stage and you have marketing or design that are saying, no, we have to change the whole information structure. The navigation structure is wrong. I want this whole set of pages to be moved under this menu. And if you're going to try to do that from within the user interface, it becomes very cumbersome and time-consuming, but it becomes a relatively simple matter to make these changes within the command line. And the same kinds of efficiencies apply to other kinds of components like users and roles. Let's take a look at users, for instance. List users. This should get us a list of the users in this current portal. It's great. So we've got a few that I've set up here. A lot of test users with the username tuser1, 2, 3, etc. And a couple of extras just to make things a little bit interesting. So about, I don't know, eight users right now. And we can see, if you look over to the right, we can tell which of these users have been authorized and which ones haven't been authorized, and their last login date. So there are things you can do when you want to list users to search for users. So you could do list users by email. Actually, again, this is another way to save time. First of all, I'm going to do the full tag here. We'll do a wildcard at, now let's do tuser wildcard to see all the test users that we have in here. Yes, I meant list users. To user. I will learn those commands eventually. And there we go. So now we can see all the test users. So, for instance, a use case would be if you have a lot of test users when you're developing something and use a similar naming convention, you can find those very easily so that you can delete them when you go live. Let's add a new user, shall we? Let's just check what the help is on that. So help new user. And here we go. So these are the options. Creates a new user in your portal. These are all of the things that you can specify when creating the new user. And again, we probably will add more of these as we go forward. But these are the options, and there's an example on creating a new user with just the required value. So I'm just going to copy that, and I am going to paste that here and hit enter. And it's created a new user for me successfully, giving me all the information about that user. So now if I do list users, then I can see that the eDorn user has been created, and they have a different domain of my email. So now I can look for list users who have a username that is like Smith. You would think I would memorize my commands. Username, not user. So you can see how it's helpful. There we go. So there are all the users we have whose username looks like Smith. So if you have some people that are kind of automating registrations, for instance, and they have a certain pattern to the username, you can easily identify them here. And eventually you'll be able to deauthorize. You can delete users now, and you can wipe them out of the recycle bin. So let's just look again at the eDorn. He's got a user ID of 11. So let's get rid of him. Delete user, 11. And that user's been deleted. It returns the previous information about that user just in case you made a mistake and you want to try to recreate the user. So that user is deleted. if we list users, you see eDorn is no longer there. And if we go to the recycle bin, we'll see that eDorn is actually in the recycle bin. And just like with pages, we can purge that user, 11, and get rid of them. And you see in the recycle bin, no more users in the recycle bin. So how am I doing on time? Am I good, or do I need to kind of wrap this up? David? Clint? Everybody fall asleep?
No, we're still here.
Okay.
Sorry, Kelly, we're here. We were talking. Did you ask us a question?
We're ideating on what on topic. Yeah.
We're just two geeking out over here.
So there's questions that are coming up.
Questions come up.
Okay.
In the chat.
So I'll just finish up because there are a lot of things you can see in the commands. I don't necessarily need to go through all of the commands. Some things are broken, some things aren't, but that will improve. Again, we're in an alpha stage. So let me just go ahead and finish up then and talk a bit about why I think this is important to the DNN platform. So let's get back. And actually, I need to switch my screen, don't I? Okay. Screen 2. And that should be here. Are we at a gray screen now, guys? Nope.
Yeah, we're seeing a gray.
Yeah, great screen.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's get back to the future of DNN. Insert your drone here for the overused cliche. But I do think it's important to the future of DNN, and that was the quickest thing I could come up with off the top of my head. So now there are some immediate benefits to something like prompt or command line for the DNN platform. First of all, as we've shown you, it provides for efficient administration of the website. So I think admins, even eventually, light admins, could probably be using the command line interface. And power admins will really love this, I think, especially if it's a busy site. So efficient administration. Second thing is it simplifies the user interface. And the idea here is that by moving the less common settings out of the user interface and into something like a command line for those settings that don't get changed often, those settings that really are the purview of a host or kind of a power admin, I think that provides the ability for DNN to shrink their user interface even more and reduce the visual load that a lot of people get when they're looking through all of those settings. And I think it will make the DNN persona bar even more efficient than it is right now. Also, easy extensibility. This is something I actually didn't demonstrate, and I want to do that real quick. Well, no, I'll just talk about it. We've already built this, and thanks to Peter Donker for really helping to instrument this. We've made this so it's incredibly easy to extend. There's not a whole heavy framework that you have to implement in order to create your own commands. All you have to do is implement a simple interface and inherit from a class. And that's it. You put it in a DLL, you drop it in the bin folder. Actually, no, I want to show you this. This is pretty cool, I think.
Please do.
So let's do this puppy. All right, so here we are back. I hope you can see back at our screen.
Yeah.
I am going to go to my documents where I've created a DLL. These are just a couple of simple commands that I created in this DLL. So this is out in my documents folder. I'm going to go to the bin folder of this test site, and I'm just going to drop it in, and then we'll go back to the site. Haven't done anything else. Now, one of the commands is called new GUID, just to test things out. So new GUID, and hit enter. And while it loads things up, we'll look for it. And there we go, new GUID. I can also get the time, I think. There's another one I put in there. And that gives us the official database server time from the server. So these things are trivial to implement, these particular functions, but you can see an IT team really having fun with this because they don't have to build out a user interface. They simply just pop in these things in a DLL and pop it in the bin folder, and you're ready to go. You don't have to restart the site or anything. You got it available for you. So that, I think, is really neat. And it's pretty resilient, too. So if I go in here and I just delete these things from the bin folder, yep, I'm going to delete them permanently. And then I go back to prompt, again, not reloading the page or anything, and type in new GUID. You can't find it. Crash, doesn't go crazy, just tells us, oh, that command's not there. So extensibility, easy to understand, easy to implement is one of the main driving forces, I think, behind prompt, and will lead to additional features. So let me pop back to the keynote, and I hope you can see that. So easy extensibility. The other thing, which I think is important, is this makes DNN unique among content management systems. Now, Joe said that there was another CMS, and I forgot what it was, but I think he might have been talking about Django. If so, my understanding is that the Django command line is it runs in the operating system as a Python script. And I'm sure he'll correct me. Oh, Drupal. Okay. Well, I haven't looked at Drupal, so ask for Drupal. What do they know anyway? But this is a command line that runs within .NET New, so you don't have to have server access in order to run it. And anybody who's an admin or a host is going to be able to use this. Okay. So the main point behind that is that everybody is flocking to command line interfaces these days. All the front-end people are using it. Like I said, you have Grunt and Webpack and all the other tooling that you have that requires people to use the command line, so they're comfortable with it. And I think having something like this in DNN, especially as we expand it out, it's going to attract more developers to the ecosystem, and I think it's going to make the ecosystem vibrant again, because there are a lot of possibilities with what you can do from the command line. So let's talk a bit about that. Let's talk a bit about the future. One, we're going to get faster rollout, not just of prompt, but of feature sets. Because prompt handles the user interface, all a command has to do is send and receive JSON data. They don't have to build any user interface at all. Also, commands, they're encapsulated, so they're designed to do one thing primarily. And that makes it easier to decouple, and that makes it easier to test. It results in more stability and reliability and greater confidence on the part of developers in order to roll something out. So you get a faster rollout of feature sets. That can be from DNN. It can be from an IT department who is customizing their DNN site. Next is site scripting. Now this won't be implemented immediately, but there are ways you can still script actions on a site. You just create a command for it. Let's just say you have a particular file that gets dumped into your website every day as part of an end-of-day process that lists, I don't know, new users from your CRM system, let's say, and you want to hook that up with, add those users to your DNN site. Well, you can simply just create a command that an admin can run at the end of the day, and it will look for that file and do all the importing for you. To the admin, it's just a command, and everything can happen on the server side. So IT people, I think, will love that. But eventually, I want to get it to the point where we can create something like bash shell scripts or PowerShell scripts, so that you can just type in the name of the script and you can have a sequence of prompt commands execute in order to do things. So if you have certain things that you do whenever you add a new user, you might create a script that will run, that you can run, that might prompt you for some information, but will then do things like add the user to certain roles, create a specific page for them, things like that. Next is ecosystem growth, and I think this is really important for the .NET New platform and the community as a whole. Prompt, as we showed you, is easily extensible, and I'll talk about how to extend it in a later session, but it's easily extensible and it is namespaceable, so we can avoid command name collisions. That means that module developers can roll out their own prompt commands for their specific modules for admin. So if I did one for XMod Pro, for instance, I might have something that would create a new XMod Pro form, a contact form, or whatever. Let's just say it's a new form. So I would type in something like xmp.new-form. If Chad Nash of Data Springs comes along and with his form module, he wants to add the same thing, he wants to add the ability to create a new form, then it might be, I don't know, DF for dynamic forms, df.new-form. And those will live in perfect harmony with each other without any issue. If you do, we have a command called list commands. If you list it, you'll see all the commands that are available to you and including those namespaces. So we're not going to get any namespace collision in that way. So module developers, I think, are going to love it. Like I said, IT departments, I think, are going to love it because it can interact with back-end systems. You can have your server hook up to whatever systems you got running on the back end, and you can have a front end that is going to give you information for it. So you could do reporting, for instance, from the command line just to get basic information that you might need on a daily basis or weekly or whatever it is, or just trigger a report to be generated. You could even set up integration with external web services this way too. So from a command line, you can interact with, I don't know, post something to Facebook maybe, or grab something from Dropbox, or put something on Dropbox. All that stuff is possible, and that opens up a brand new world for development for developers, commercial and open source, and the DNN platform as well. Finally, and I think this is really interesting, I think we can create an NPM for extensions. If you're familiar with Node, then you're familiar with the Node Package Manager, NPM. I think that we can do something similar for .NET New. We call it DNN PM, so the .NET New Package Manager. And what this will allow us to do, just imagine being able to say, install a module or an extension from the command line. You could type in something like this, DNN PM -- install XMod Pro, and you get XMod Pro. You don't have to worry about where it is. You don't have to go to my site to do it. You don't have to go to the store to do it. It will just install it for you. You can use the same thing, just like NPM does. You can do DNN PM -- update or -- remove. And so it would take care of the module that way. And I think that is potentially very valuable for the platform and makes a lot of this extension management a lot easier. And that can obviously be extended even more. So that is the demo and what I think of how this can fit into the future of DNN. I would love you to contribute, though. That's the main reason I'm demonstrating this. So it is open source. It's MIT licensed. I would consider it in alpha state right now, but there are a number of things that I really need you to do. And that is go to the shortened link here on GitHub. It's xmp.cc/prompt GitHub. Or you can just you can search for DNN Dev, which is my username on GitHub. And then you can find you can see in the image here the DNN.admin experience.extensions, because we're trying to integrate it with the DNN core. But I need you to submit bug reports in the issues list, pull requests if you would like to venture into adding some code, and that would be of enormous help. I really would want you to test security, make sure there aren't any holes here. We are adhering to standard .NET New secure principles. We're testing against CSRF attacks. We do the role-based security. But there's always a possibility that you could inadvertently open a hole. We want to make sure that this thing is rock solid before we release it to the general public. And then, of course, because I don't know all the information that you might want or need on a daily basis, or that most people need, I would like to know what commands you need and what properties, what values you want out of this system. So feel free to add those as suggestions or wish list items on the issues as well. And with that, I want to finally point you to the link in the middle. Thanks to the yeoman's effort of Clint Patterson, we have a wiki. So if you go to xmp.cc/promptwiki, then you'll be taken there, and there's a lot more information about the commands, how to do some installation, etc. there. And I want to give a huge shout out to Peter Donker, David Poindexter, and of course Clint, who have been contributing enormously to this project thus far, and Chris Hammond and Brian Dukes also have volunteered their services going forward. So thank you to them. Without your contributions, we wouldn't be at this point, and I'm confident with integrate this into the core because we think it's so vital. So we've set up the project so it will integrate. It'll be as simple as a pull request on their part, hopefully. That's what we're working towards. So if you're going to go, go to the link that I provided. If you go to the URL you're at right now, you'll see that the branch is set at development. We're not using that for active development. We're going to use that to merge in and create the pull request eventually. So if you follow the prompt GitHub shortened link that I gave you, that will take you directly to the DNN Dev branch. Not just select DNN Dev branch like Clint did, and use that instead. That's where all of the active development is going to be happening.
It looks like we've got internet connection here again. I saw a few questions came through here. One from Daryl Tunnel, who created DNN Packager, says, are there future plans to allow running scripts as a part of an extension installation?
Yeah, there are a number of ways that we can approach that. Again, on the back end, we're trying to use the DNN APIs whenever possible. So my preference is to have something along the lines of a bash shell script or a PowerShell script in which you put in. We have a command already for install extension. So install extension could be one of the commands, and if that executes successfully, then a second command in that script could do whatever you want, or a series of commands that you want to do. So that's probably how we'll go about it. But again, we're open to suggestions, especially if you want to integrate with prompts somehow.
Excellent. We have one question from Joe Brinkman. Want to know if there was a way to reset config to defaults?
I didn't catch that. A way to what?
Reset the config to defaults. Basically, I think he's talking about DNN configuration.
To the not at the moment, but certainly can be. Yeah, that's one of the joys of working with prompt. Really, I mean, you can tell I'm excited, and it's not just because it's something that's my project, but the whole idea is exciting to me. It's just so easy to add stuff like that. So again, Corp can add that command very simply to prompt and plop it into a DLL.
Yeah, hop on it, Joe. Open source.
All right, Joe, we've assigned that issue to you. So,
Kelly, I was telling the guys in here and put in the chat room that I think site administrators are going to know these commands so much by heart that at conferences we could like have people, you know, for prizes stand up and recite commands from the heart, you know, to see who could do it the fastest or most accurate for win,
That would
whatever.
be awesome. That would be wonderful to see that.
And
And
Joe
I
can do the,
We need a DNN prop song.
Kelly, I think many of us are kind of just sitting here in awe of what you've done here. It's more than impressive, the effort that you put into this and what the outcome is. I think wheels are spinning and brains are, you know, short-circuiting here. So it's really cool what you've done.
Joe says he's going to have that Florida Fest by the end of the weekend. Yeah, hold him to it.
You know, the greatest thing to say thanks or a pat on the back would be to contribute in one way, shape, or form, however you feel comfortable. And if you're a module developer or you're a regular developer and you see things that should be there, talk with us to see if there's an opportunity to have that in the prompt core or add your own extension, because as you saw, it's really easy to drop in a DLL and add new commands.
So we see a whole ecosystem being built off this, Kelly. It's pretty impressive. So
I do want to thank you and Clint as well. You guys have been enormously helpful in these past couple of weeks and helping to spread the word. This is you deserve a pat on the back, claps all around for you guys. And of course for Peter, who's not here, who's been instrumental in helping to kind of architect some of this stuff and get it integrated with the core way of doing things.
He's still working on the icon.
Yeah. You'll have to read the wiki on how to install the icon because we're trying to integrate with the DNN build process as well, and the way they have things set up. The icon, if you're going to be in the root like we want to be, the icon is actually in a different project, so you would have to compile that and install that one as well. So hopefully, since Joe is listening, we may be able to get some forward movement on that, or at least get have some way to specify that the icon should go on the root somehow.
Kelly and Matt, thank you for taking the time to present. Both of you guys, really good stuff. Got a lot of compliments in the chat window for you guys, and really thanks for taking the time to present. One quick announcement here at the very end. DNN 9.0.2 has now officially dropped, and it's now available, and you'll find that out in the normal GitHub releases for the DNN platform there. So please be sure to go out and check that out. We will have that available in MD QuickSight by this evening. So now we know that it's there. Last but not least, we have the giveaways. So we're going to do 2 quick giveaways here, and just a reminder, all online attendees have been entered in this.
What is this for? Is this for?
Both of these are going to be for JetBrains' 1-year subscription to any one of their products, including ReSharper. So if someone will do the honors there. If there's something on the back before you read the number. Okay, it's a blank one. So this will be somebody here in the room.
479065.
Also, Michael Musha is our Microsoft FTE sponsor here. So,
do you use Visual Studio?
Michael works as your team here.
That's the winner in example.
And we'll go to the second one here.
You got your the coding process.
All right, that one's on the back, so, and we'll do another one. They have left. Have to be present for them.
All right.
All right, and I believe, oh, no, you're still here. We have Court A from managed.com has won this one. So congratulations. If you have one, be sure to send an email to info@southernsidednn.com, and we will get you the details on how to get your JetBrains license. So thanks everybody for joining us. Good time for the DNN community. Have a great night.
Thank you.